Hi crafters, Amy here, and I have some simple sympathy card ideas to share with you today. I'm going to jump right into some of the products that I'm using. I have an A2 size panel of 110 pound cardstock. This has been die cut down with this stitched edge rectangle die from Paper Rose. I do also have an embossing folder. This is flowers and leaves, I believe. It's an altenew 3D embossing folder. And I have this die cut from sizzix that I'm going to use for the sentiment. I'm going to do some ink blending on this, but here's a photo of the first finished card. Stick around to the end and I'll show you a bonus card that doesn't involve any ink blending or adding any ink to the design. But to start, I'm just showing you I have this die cut panel and I'm spritzing it with a little bit of water before I run it through the embossing folder. I find that this really helps the fibers of the paper really kind of hang on to the design. But if you are going to die cut the panel as well as emboss it, then be sure to do your die cutting first so that you don't crush down your design running it through your die cutting machine again. Now I have just a piece of the same sort of 110 pound cardstock, and I'm just going to do a little bit of light ink blending with this Distress Oxide called Salvage Patina. And you may notice I do have a separate set of brushes for my Distress Oxides. Now oxides are a hybrid ink. They're a mix of pigment and dye, and they do kind of, I don't know, add a little bit of extra residue onto my blending brushes. So that's why I like to have a separate set for my dye inks as well as my oxides. But I'm basically just ink blending, not really mindful of getting a perfect blend because I know I'm going to be die cutting it out, but I just need a space big enough that I can use the colored portion to cut out this sentiment. Now this is a Spanish sentiment. It does mean, it translates in English to heartfelt condolences. I have a lot of native Spanish speaking people in my life, so it's nice to have these sentiments and stamps in Spanish. Plus my daughter is in a Spanish immersion program at school, so it's just nice to have these options. But I'm just continuing on that same color with a very light hand, just kind of accenting certain areas that are raised on this 3D embossed panel, and that's going to tie in this pretty sentiment here. Now you can see I have the little tittle still stuck in the die, so I use a piece of the low tack tape to pull that out, but I'm just going to carefully remove this. It is a little bit delicate, so I'm going to grab my pokey tool here and try and get it out. Now I will tell you this was surprisingly a little difficult to get out, so I would recommend a sentiment like this to just do yourself a favor and run it through your die cutting machine with a metal shim, and that will make this process a little bit easier. Now it did end up coming out okay, but it was a little fiddly, so if it's even remotely delicate like this, then I would recommend just running it through with a metal shim if you have one, just to kind of get that nice even cut, and then you won't have to struggle as much. And I grabbed a piece of foam here. Sometimes it makes it easier to use the pokey tool with a piece of foam. It kind of helps you pop out the little fiddly bits and things like that from your die cut. So it's just another little tip if you are into die cutting and have some sentiments with very little tiny pieces that you need to poke out in the letters. So eventually I'll get through this process here, but I'm very happy with this sentiment, and I was very excited when I found it. So it's kind of nice to have this in my crafty stash. You can see I'm really struggling with the back of one of the letters. It was not cooperating, but finally got it all sorted. And then I was thinking, yay, now I'm going to do liquid glue and have that ooze all over the back of it. So at this point I think I'm deliberating on what I'm going to do. But first of all, I'm going to use some tape runner and attach this embossed panel down to a card base that's A2 size 110 pound Neenah Classic Crest Solar White. So the dimensions of the card base are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and this embossed panel that I'm attaching is just slightly smaller than that, but does have that nice finished stitched edge rectangle from the rectangle die rather. I'm just making sure that's straight, pushing that down on there. And then I decide to use my Xyron sticker maker rather than liquid glue for this sentiment because it is small enough it will fit in there. They do have larger sticker makers where you can do, you know, like a bigger size, but I don't have those. So as you can see, this fits perfectly, and what it does is it puts adhesive on the back of it. Another variation is you could use adhesive backed sheets to begin with and just do your die cutting through that. But here I'm showing you a sandwich. Some of my fans have recently been telling me that you can run this sticker essentially through your die cutting machine with some pressure, and it'll get rid of all the little sticky strings. So here I'm just showing you, I have the base, I have my metal shim, I have a couple pieces of craft cardstock, I have the rubber mat, then I have this sticker basically that I made, and then that embossing plate, and I ran it through and it did absolutely work. You can see here it was maybe a little too much pressure though, so it really kind of like almost broke that backer and was a little bit hard to get off, but it did definitely get rid of the little stringy bits that you'll get through that process when you use the sticker maker. So it does work. Still fine-tuning with my particular die cutting machine and my sandwich, but I'm getting closer. Like I said, I think if I did the metal shim and the rubber and the top plate and maybe just one of the pieces of craft, that's probably going to be the winning combination there. But it did definitely take away the little stringy bits, so I didn't have to use my pokey tool to kind of get those out of the way. So this is just an alternative for adhesive. You can absolutely use liquid glue or whatever other medium to stick down your sentiment. I did still have to use the liquid glue for the little tittle on the eye, but other than that, it did eliminate the frustration of me having to put liquid glue on the back of it. So you do you, whatever works, whatever adhesive floats your boat. But I'm just coming back with this liquid adhesive just to add down some little blingage bits here. These are iridescent sequins. They're really pretty, and I didn't feel like they were too flashy for a sympathy card. I'm trying to keep it kind of clean and simple, but like I said, stick around. At the end I'll show you another bonus card here quickly that I put together. But that's the beauty of these embossing folders. You can just really create such a wowza effect with very minimal effort, and you can turn them into a gorgeous birthday card or a sympathy card or thinking of you or really anything. They're so versatile. And here's the other card. This is I think a Peony embossing folder. I will link it with all the other products that I used in the video description box below, but you can see here what I did was just put the white die cut of the same sentiment on some black cardstock, and then I just fussy cut it out. So I didn't actually have like a shadow die or anything, but I kind of created the illusion of it, and then that stood out enough on the stark white just to kind of keep it clean and simple. And that's just another easy variation to do it without any ink blending if that's not your jam. So I hope you find this helpful. I know a lot of people struggle with sympathy cards, but these are an easy design just to kind of have on hand when you need it. And if you enjoyed the vid, please hit the thumbs up, and I'll check you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.